if you're a private practice owner and your providers are busy, your schedules are full, but the money still feels tight, this is going to be for you. Most clinics are underbilling, period. Not because they're unethical, but because nobody has given the clinical team a clear, confident framework for how to bill and how to code for the value that they're actually delivering. And so today, I'm going to show you how to use one simple metric, skilled units per visit, to see if your visits are actually pulling the financial weight that they need to. And I'm going to give you the 5 people systems that you need so that your team can deliver world-class care and bill for it ethically without you hovering over every single chart. Guys, welcome to episode number 8. We're trucking along. For those of you that have watched this in real time, sorry for last week. I missed an episode. Things got crazy. I had to go sign some papers and missed a week. But I'm back, and we're on episode 8 of, I believe it's 8 of 12. Yeah, it's 8, 9, 10. 11, 12. Yeah, 8 of 12. We have 12 episodes planned. So today we're going to talk about units per visit, or skilled units per visit. How to make it work. I mean, I know that if you're the owner and you're somebody that treats patients all the time, like most of us, then you know how to bill, right? It doesn't take long for you to figure out really quickly how to build a treatment plan that allows you to maximize your value and billing potential and coding potential. That's something that you are incentivized to figure out because you're the owner. But your team's probably not thinking about that stuff, right? Because quite frankly, their paycheck doesn't always depend on it. So, how do we bridge that gap? How do we bridge the gap between the driven performance that you have and your team? And so hopefully today we can break that down for you in a way that makes sense and give you some value, okay? So what's the problem? What's the problem? Let's talk about the problem, right? The problem, right? You have full schedules, or they're getting full. You see the visits coming in, right? You have good clinical outcomes. Patients are getting happy. They're discharging on time. You know, if you watched the previous episode, you're keeping people compliant. They're doing a good job. The people are leaving testimonials, but you still don't have enough profit margin to pay your people well, or for you to actually get off the treatment floor enough to be an owner and a CEO. All right. And there's a lot of reasons why that could be the case, but let's assume that you've got good contracts in place, and you've got you're collecting well over the counter, your billing team's doing well. Let's assume all of those things are true. At that point, typically the root cause of your issue at this point is going to be that your clinicians are, they're not effectively coding and billing or maximizing their ethical billing, right? Because the truth is that all clinicians are going to bill differently, and it's going to be dependent on their perspective, how they're incentivized. It's going to be dependent on who mentored them or trained them when they were a new grad, who told them how to bill. It's going to be about what they learned in school, because we all know that new grad clinicians are terrified of overbilling. They get pounded by the profession about how Satan himself is going to come and steal your soul if you accidentally bill an extra unit, and there's a lot of fear around that. So they're very guarded and protective with the amount of units that they bill, and therefore they typically edge on the side of underbilling. All right. And also owners, you guys trying to lead and be an owner are avoiding the hard money conversations with the team. And so as a result, you have full schedules, but you just simply have too few units per visit being billed, which equals low revenue per visit, right? And so that will throw your labor ratios out of whack. And as you'll learn a little bit in a few episodes, a greater percentage of your revenue will have to be allocated towards paying payroll, which will eat your profit margins. Okay. And so as a result of that, your business won't be able to afford competitive compensation or real owner salary, and that will keep you stuck financially. All right. So what we want to do today is teach you how to fix that, hopefully. Okay. So let's define the metric. The metric is going to be skilled units per visit. Let's see if I can write it out for you guys. Skilled units per visit. We're all familiar with units per visit. And this is the way that you can measure it. There's a bunch of different ways to measure this, but I was taught skilled units per visit when I opened my practice, and that's just kind of what I went with. But it's important to focus on this word skilled, right? Skilled units per visit, because these are the codes that will typically represent the highest level of professional skill, right? So if we bring this down, it's going to be high skill, right? There's going to be a deeper depth of clinical reasoning and decision making and intervention, and they're typically going to carry the highest amount of reimbursement, right? Highest reimbursement, right? And so that's why they're skilled. So if you just measure units per visit, you could mistakenly, you might have a lot of units on the board, but if those units are not worth very much, like if those units are worth pennies instead of dollars, then it doesn't really help you maximize the output of each of those visits, right? All right. So how do you calculate it? Very simple. Okay. The calculation is going to be for each clinic and or for each provider, right? This is really important to measure, not just at the clinic level, but at the provider level, meaning the number of the skilled units per visit for provider A versus provider B versus provider C, and the overall clinic skilled units per visit, right? So it's just going to simply be total skilled units right, divided by total visits, total completed visits, right? So if you have, let's just say you have 100 skilled units, and let's say you did 25 visits, that's going to equal 4 skilled units per visit. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So you can measure that over the week or the day, or the month or the quarter or the year. But that's how you measure that, okay? And so you can use your EMR. Your EMR will always ideally have some available reporting. They typically don't do a good job of measuring it down at the skilled unit level. So you may need to contact your EMR team and get some custom reporting made. But ideally, you can build out some custom reporting. If you can't, then you may need to just use a spreadsheet or some AI tools where you can just export your units per visit and kind of use some AI and AI prompts, and it could probably help you calculate your skilled units per visit. Okay. But the benchmark for if you're a PT or an OT, if you're an outpatient rehab professional, your benchmark, your target is usually going to be 4 skilled units per visit for a 60-minute appointment. Right? Okay, we don't have to get into a huge billing training here, but roughly every 15 minutes you can bill a unit. That's just, yeah, there's some nuances to that, but you get the idea, right? So if you run this report, if you go to your clinical team, you run it provider by provider, and you see that you're only billing 2.5 to 3 units per skilled units per visit, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table, quite frankly. Okay. So let me show you the math, because we can all talk about this, but the numbers don't lie. I just got off the phone with one of my partners, and he said, let's look at the numbers because they don't lie. It's so true. All right. So let's say that we're gonna estimate, let's say a skilled unit is worth $25. Okay. That means that 4 skilled units is going to be worth $100, right? 3 skilled units is going to be worth $75, right? That difference is going to be $25 per visit. Okay. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, right? So if you look at over 1,000 visits, let's say if it's 1,000 visits, that's gonna times $25 a visit is gonna equal 25 grand, right? 25 grand. Now, that could be over a month or a quarter or a year, but there's a lot of money being left on the table there. These units could be captured somehow, right? Now, that's, when we're talking about billing, there's a lot of, it's easy to get kind of pulled into like the ethical side of things. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that every single person should get 4 units per visit every single time, no matter what, because we all know that that's not ethical, that's not legal, that's not what this is about. This is about making sure that we're maximizing what is legal and ethical, and that we're positioning our schedules and our calendars and our care models in a way that helps us land on the positive as much as possible. When that time arises, we should land at 4 units per visit every time, and when we have the ability to do so. Okay. And so the point is that 25K is, it directly affects a lot of things, but like I mentioned, number one, it's going to direct your profit margin, right? It's going to direct your profit margin is going to be majorly impacted. And that's not just to help you buy a new boat. That's to do a lot of other things inside the business, right? Pay your clinicians. Right? Pay your clinicians. That's huge, right? Hire admin. Okay. If you need a higher operational capacity or a VA to help you with marketing or invest in marketing, right? And ability to step out. As a CEO, right? So if you're constantly having to treat patients and be a revenue generator, not that you can't do that at all. That's not what this is about. But if you can't step out and if you can't carve out any type of bandwidth to be a CEO, then everyone's going to suffer. The whole business is going to suffer. That's not good for anyone. Okay. And so, kind of going back to my disclaimer, you're going to have to follow some payer rules. There's going to be some Medicare, some Medicaid rules. There's versus commercial payers. You're going to have state and federal regulations around billing. Your professional board is going to have guidelines. The game, again, is to maximize and ethically bill for the care that you actually provide, not to game the system. Okay. I want to be clear about that. All right. So that's important to know. Period. Okay. So let's break this down. on how do we fix it. Okay. 5 systems. Okay. 5 systems, 5 people systems to drive skilled units per visit in your clinic. Whether that's whether you have a team of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 50, 100, right? These are some 5 ways that you can drive it. All right. So number 1, this is going to be a change in behavior, which is hard, right? People don't like change. Nobody likes change. Okay. And so if you want to change in your behavior, you're going to have to create a healthy money frame with the team. Okay. So this is important. This is critical. The reason why the reason why money conversations don't go well with you and your team is because the frame is off. They think you're all about the money. They think you're all about trying to manipulate them and rob their autonomy as a clinician. That's what they think. And you're trying to tiptoe around that boundary, and you have a hard time just having a direct, authentic conversation around it. And I guess I'm assuming that, but that's what I've noticed in myself and with a lot of practice owners that I've worked with. Okay. And so you want to have that conversation, but you don't want to cross, you're having a hard time understanding where to draw that line. Okay. And that's because there's no clear frame. There's no clear agreement on how we talk about money in the company. There's no clear definition of what money is or what it isn't, and how we measure it and how we use it as a tool. Like, none of that has been described or agreed upon, and therefore there's no frame, there's no culture, there's no language to actually have a conversation around money with your team. And so it's this vague, weird, evil villain that lives in the corner that nobody wants to talk about. And that's a really big reason why it's hard to create movement around this with your people. Okay. So because you're not going to be able to improve this if your clinicians believe that money talk equals greed. Okay. If you say the word money, then you're greedy. It's never going to work. Or, if they believe good clinicians underbill to be safe, right? Because that means that they're always going to underbill. Therefore, they're never going to be able to generate a return for the company. And you're never going to be able to have a productive conversation around the money. Therefore, you're never going to be able to drive that outcome. Okay. And so there's going to be 3 frames that I like to use. 3 frames to teach during the onboarding process and during team meetings around money. Okay. Here's the frame. Frame number 1. Money equals value exchange. Okay. So we want to use the word value or value-based words instead of money. Okay. And so this is exactly what you would teach on the onboarding process. Hey, let's talk about money. Okay. Money is a part of this. It's not why we do it, but it's what we do it for, right? It's not why we do it, but it's what we do it for. You're here. We're going to provide you with X, Y, Z. The why is over here related to our purpose, vision, values. And in exchange, for that exchange, you're going to get paid a paycheck and you're going to generate revenue. Okay. So we have to make sure that fits well. Everybody good with that? Right? And so money is just simply an exchange of value. And guess what? The more value that we create, the more compensation that we can create for you and for the company and for everyone else, right? So if you can come in and create more value for your patients, create more value for the company, create more value for your team, you will earn more money. You will generate more revenue for the company. You will generate more value for the patients. And therefore, there will be a greater abundance of financial exchange in the whole ecosystem. Okay. And so our goal is to maximize value. Maximize value. So we lead with value. How do we add value? What would we have to do to be so valuable to all involved that we would be able to feel justified and good that we could maximally charge for it? What would we have to be created there? Okay, that's the problem. That's the problem that we solve as a team. Okay, so money is a value exchange. That's number one. Number two, money equals fuel for the mission. Okay, so I alluded to it a little bit, but if we can clarify our mission, right? Our mission is this. Our purpose is this. Our values are this. This is the way we define our culture, right? And we create this value in exchange for money, and that money, that revenue, is the coal, is the fuel that moves our purpose, our values, and our vision down the track. Okay, so we have a locomotive, and we're going to take that value and that money, and we're going to put it into this system. We're going to put it into this movement that's going to help us create mission, purpose, values. That it's a tool that we use. It's not it's not why we do it. It's a tool that we use, right? So you can see how we're starting to create this frame, this belief system around money, which is all true, but it takes explicit, intentional design to create that belief system with yourself as an owner, to remind yourself of that sometimes. Sometimes we can be so scarce around money and guilty as charged, and we can kind of get into those fear-based conversations around money, and that's usually never good. We're putting money first instead of keeping the mission, the vision, the values first, okay? And so without that money team, we can't hire great people. We can't invest in ourselves. We can't invest in our company. Can't invest in our patients. And we can't serve the way that we want to serve at the scale that we want to serve, right? So that's frame number two. Frame number three is the even exchange. Okay? And so we want to create, team, an even exchange, which means we as the company are going to go and we're going to provide you with compensations, benefits, and support your clinical growth. We're going to give you, documentation time and the AI, the EMR, and all these things. We're gonna exchange. We're giving you that. We're sliding that across the table, right? And so, in order to create a fair and even exchange between company and employee, we want you to bring this level of value for the patients and for the company so that we can create this type of revenue outcome to move our mission forward. That's what we call even. Okay. So if you're down here and you're not producing that value, then we're no longer in exchange. Okay. Similarly, if you're creating that value and the company's not giving you that compensation exchange, then that's not fair for you. And so our goal is to have an even exchange at all times. Okay. So create value, use money as a tool, and create an even exchange. If you can create that framework during the onboarding process, like I would recommend, and maybe this is how I've done it in my practice. Okay. I'm not saying you have to do it like this. I'm saying this is probably something like this. You can find the language that fits your culture, but something like this in the onboarding process, right? So I'd recommend like having a video, right? Create a video and be like, hi, welcome to Southern Physical Therapy Clinic. My name's Adam. I'm the owner. Today, we're going to talk about something really weird, something you might not have ever talked about. We're going to talk about money, what it is, what it isn't. Money is this emotional thing that creates this weird dynamic sometimes, and we just want to like put all that away. All right, so let's talk about it. And then you go through your frames. All right, this is how we look at money as a company. This is how we define it. This is how we describe it. And setting that intention high on the front end is really, really critical. I feel like I've talked way too long about that. Okay, so let's go to number two. Okay, so now you've got the high. You see, we haven't even started throwing units. Units are the outcome. We start with the belief system. We start with the culture. Start the emotional side so that we can create that behavior change. Okay, it's going to take time. All right, but the second thing is we want to build a high performance culture. Okay, I talked about this in episode 7. So if you don't know what that is, stop, go to episode 7, right? It's the one right before this. All right, so you have to build a culture of performance. This is delivering value at scale is an output metric. It's a performance metric, right? It's what separates it's what qualifies you. If you can do it well, it's what qualifies you of being labeled as good at your job, right? And in order to do that, you must perform. Okay, and so you want to have a culture, building that culture where performance is measured, coaching and feedback is normal, and the ambition that you and your team have around ethical billing and productivity is allowed. It is permitted. Okay, it's not something that we obsess over, but it's something that we are going to acknowledge and address as a company. All right. So there's steps to building that culture of performance. Go to episode 7. All right, but as a breakdown, as a high level summary, you want to start with developing yourself. Okay. Building a culture of performance is about influencing people to become the best version of themselves. Influencing that behavior change you must have the emotional intelligence and the language and the perspective and experience of somebody who can be followed and influenced. And so you must develop yourself as a leader. Okay, you can do that through reading leadership books, investing in mentors, and doing things that are really hard that you have to fight and claw and elevate yourself to get through, so that you can have that experience, so you can have that proof that you are actually somebody who is capable. All right. So you can develop yourself. Number 2, normalize sales and enrollment. Okay. You're going to normalize sales and enrollment as part of the clinical experience. If I'm using language that you're not familiar with, go back to episode 7. Okay. You're a clinician. You're a sales professional. You're in the job. You're in the business of influencing people's behavior and decision-making process, not from a place of manipulation, but from a place of leadership and guidance and helping them make the best decision for themselves. And so you have to build that sales and enrollment process and understand that this is part of the sales process. This is part of the fulfillment process, okay? And then number 3 is make it okay to talk about numbers. Okay? Make it okay to talk about numbers. You have to be okay with talking about numbers. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen on the first go around, right? You have a team meeting, be like, okay, guys, we're going to talk about numbers, and you're going to be up there. Your lips are going to be quivering, and you're going to have like imposter syndrome through the roof. They're going to be judging you. You're going to kind of like have to work through it. And that those repetitions will help you develop the belief system. All right. And so building that culture of performance is that next step. So if you can see this ship starting to turn, right? Somebody who's got low skilled units per visit, really low units per visit, just can't get the team to buy into billing appropriately. There's pushback. There's outcome. The decisions and the behaviors that they commit to, that you and your team commit to, are directly tied to the belief system that's on the back end of that. And so we have to change the belief system to eventually change the outcome. And that takes time. It's not something you can't just show up and be like, all right, team, now you're going to do this. You're going to get a bunch of rejection. All right. I tried that, and I still try that sometimes, and it's a bad idea. All right. All right. Number 3. So you can see how we're starting on the back end. These are it's like the unspoken, undefined influencers of this outcome that you're starting to manipulate and change and create a different culture. Okay. Number 3, educate and orient your clinicians. Okay. Confused people don't. Okay. If they're confused, they're not going to do it, because confusion is what are some of the kind of the byproducts or the outcomes of confusion. Number 1, fear, anxiety, worry, which is all kind of the same, but like feeling lost, right? All negative emotions, which is going to create this fear limitation mindset about actually stepping into something new. And so the only way to break free of that with people is to create awareness, is to create perspective, is to educate and orient, so that people can have more comfort and they can feel more confident that they understand what's on the other side of that behavior, and why it matters, and how it actually fits into the bigger situation. And then they will create confidence and conviction, and it will feel more normal. Okay. And so you have to educate people, and you can't assume, because we all know what assuming does. You can't assume that your clinical team knows as much about billing and coding as you do, because they don't. They don't. I promise you they don't. They're smart. They're smarter than you in a lot of ways. But in this way, they probably aren't as smart. They don't know a lot of things, right? But your job is to make billing and coding visible. You want to make it visible, understandable, and trainable. Okay? So I'm going to make that. Make your billing and coding visible, understandable, and trainable. Okay? And so some of the practical steps is, you can map out your main codes, build a simple red, yellow, green guide for each of those codes, and you can train them on things like how to structure a full treatment session ethically, how to document and support the codes, how to calculate skilled units per visit, and what good looks like. Okay. And so when I say map out the codes, map out codes. Okay. Map out the codes. Hey, team, here's a list of all the codes. Here are the codes that have high value, and here's why. Here are the codes that have low value, and here's why. Here are the codes that pay the most in order: highest paying, middle paying, lowest paying, right? Here are the codes that pay the least. And here are the clinical situations that can justify each of these codes based off of listen, you have ChatGPT, it's not that hard to find. Okay, here are examples. Here's the language that you could use to describe it and document it. And if we can create this value piece, then that's going to create more financial exchange for everyone. And here's some of the outcomes that would result from that. Okay. From there, you can build a simple red, yellow, green guide, right? Red is like below the even exchange, right? So if in order for this to work, in order to create that even exchange, you need to see this many visits a week and bill this many skilled units per visit every week. Okay. If you're below this number, we're in the red, right? That means that we're temporarily out of exchange, and we need to try to figure out a way to bump that back up. If you're in the yellow, that means we're good, right? You're satisfying your role. And if you're in the green, then at that point you're operating above baseline, and you're looking into bonus opportunities and promotion opportunities with us. Okay? So that can be on the job description. That red, yellow, green scorecard, that can be on the job description. Okay? And so this is kind of what you're training your team. You can give them guides, give them rules, give them all the things that help them orient. And then so you're going to train them on, like I said, how to structure a full treatment session ethically, how to structure it, define that, give them some examples. Very simple to do. Train them on how to document to support the codes. Okay? Here's what a good treatment session looks like. ChatGPT. Here's how you would code that. And here's the documentation that you would use to support that treatment. Right? And then lastly, train them how to calculate skilled units per visit and what good looks like. If you do those three things, people are going to be like, they're not dumb, they're very smart. They're more likely to move forward in that direction. All right? Let's go to number 4. Number 4. Okay, so now you have a team. And ideally, this is all in the onboarding process. If you haven't built this out for your team yet, then it's going to be kind of like a new thing, a new rollout. But this is not a thing that you roll out once and you never talk to it again. It's this thing that you build, you roll it out with your team, and then you plug it into the onboarding process so that every new person that comes onto your team has this step-by-step framework that they go through, they check off on, they understand, they sign and acknowledge. It's on the job description. They sign and acknowledge it, and everybody's on the same page with it, right? And then that's how you can slowly build a culture. Number 4, line compensation. With desired behavior. Okay? Align the compensation around it, around the behavior that you're looking for. This is actually something that I haven't done a great job personally in my clinics. In some of my other companies I have. Right? But the compensation model, it's a reinforcer. Yeah, it's a reinforcer that keeps everyone accountable, right? And so if you can create a compensation model that naturally incentivizes your team to maximize value, and that rewards them very well for that, then that naturally, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say punishes, but like de-incentivizes them to underperform, then they're going to naturally find ways to be more productive overall. And it's going to require less day-to-day maintenance. Yeah, and you want to trying to create the idea of an exchange where, it's not like you're not trying to take advantage of them to where it's like, I'm not going to pay you anything. It's like, no, like let's create something that tilts it towards this direction, so that way you can earn more with us, and also like I don't have to continue to remind you all the time, so that you just kind of know, like you can figure out how to organize your treatment approach in a way that helps you maximize value, right? That's all this is about, all right? But if your compensation with your clinical team is totally disconnected from your revenue, your units per visit, and your revenue, you should expect misalignment. You should expect there to be a continuous challenge to keep the boat moving forward, right? And so you have options. You can do you can have some type of base pay plus bonuses is usually like the best model. Okay. that base should be a little bit less than standard and the bonuses should be a little bit more than standard, right? So that way, they're still getting paid for bad weeks, but they have an opportunity to earn a ton if they do well. Okay. And so you can tie those bonuses to visits, revenue generation, or skilled units per visit within ethical boundaries. All right. And if you do it right, your clinicians will feel safe. There'll be no surprise changes to their paycheck or anything, and they'll feel fairly rewarded for the high value and productivity that they're doing. All right. And then number 5 is everyone's favorite, which is the same one for every show. Measure, report, and coach on the data. Okay? Measure, report, and coach on the data. This is just the accountability framework, right? This is great for clinicians, not just clinicians, but this is going to be great for, PCCs, front care coordinator, your billing team, your accountant. You could be your marketing team. This is basically how you run a team. This is just good. This could be for your virtual assistant. You want to have an organization and a structure and systems in place that allows you to be objective more often, report and coach up on the data. Okay. So at least monthly, ideally weekly, you want to have these meeting and coaching sessions by clinic and by provider. You want to start measuring things like skilled units per visit, revenue per visit is also an optional but very powerful pairing to match together, and put this data on a scorecard. Okay. So let's do weekly meeting. Put the data on a scorecard. Okay. A visual scorecard, Google Sheet, so that everyone can see their averages. Make it visible. Right? And every clinician can see their own trends on the scorecard. And then you can use the data. You want to use the data to celebrate high performers. Celebrate them. This is awesome. Wow. Look at all of the value generated and look at all the fuel that we are able to use to move our business forward, right? Identify who needs mentorship or who needs coaching, and focus on training on the specific gaps the specific objective gaps that you find in the data. All right? And so your job there is going to be to hold an ethical line with your team, coach them up, but don't criticize them, right? This is not a beat down session. It's about coaching them up and making this clear on why it matters, which is around adding value to patients, helping your team get compensated well, and helping your team stay afloat and grow over time, right? And so those are the 5 systems, guys. So just a quick recap. Number 1, create a healthy money frame with your team. Okay, we talked about money equals value, money equals fuel for the mission, and having an even exchange between employee and company. Number 2, building a high performance culture, right? We talked about referencing episode 7, but you need to learn how to obviously develop yourself as a leader, normalize sales and enrollment into the company, and make it okay to talk about metrics, right? Number 3, educate and orient your clinicians, because confused people don't. You want to make your billing and coding rules and trainings visible, understandable, and trainable, and map out your codes. High value versus low value, high reimbursement versus low reimbursement. How to organize your treatment sessions to justify that, to deliver that value, and how to document it appropriately. Give them examples. All right. Number 4, align your compensation with a desired behavior, ideally some type of base pay plus a bonus opportunity. And then number 5 is going to be measure, report, and coach on the data. Have a weekly cadence of touch points with your clinic as a whole and for each provider. It could be maybe the provider is more quarterly or something like that. Have the data available and put it on a scorecard that everyone can see and share. Celebrate the wins, coach up the gaps, and hold an ethical line with your team, but don't criticize. All right? And so that is the process. If you do that and you hold that line, you will see that revenue, that units per visit metric start to come up. And so, yeah, don't make the mistake like I made and think that units per visit will just eventually fix itself, because it usually won't. Whenever I look back at the times where we struggled with this metric, it's usually because we had a belief problem, a knowledge problem, or a fit problem somewhere on the clinical team. And that is where staffing becomes really, really critical. Making sure you're hiring clinicians who you onboard well, who you onboard and orient well, train well and hold them accountable well, lead them well. They buy into your model, they are coachable around performance, and they're willing to learn billing and coding frameworks that are realistic, okay? And so also ensuring that you're supporting them with very strong admin and virtual assistant staff so they're not drowning in paperwork and rushing their billing and kind of skipping that process, right? Because virtual assistants can help with documentation support, tracking metrics, billing audits, etc., holding teams accountable, auditing, all the things. Okay. And so your goal should be to have a team that delivers very high value and bills it correctly. Ideally without the owner being the only one who understands the numbers. Okay. Because if all that stuff is in your head and your team's not oriented around it, then you're going to kind of be on an island by yourself. And that's good. And that's no good. Right. Okay. So if you are looking at your data and your reports and your EMR, and you're recognizing that your skilled units per visit are low, you probably don't have a billing problem. You have a staffing and people systems problem. You're a great clinician. You have some great clinicians, but they were never oriented, never led, and never shown how money, value, and coding actually fit together in your practice. Okay? And you're the only one that's paying for that every single month. So if you want help with how to implement systems like this, or just some free coaching or guidance or some resources that might be useful, you can book a free 20-minute staffing freedom call. On the call, we're going to look at your current provider mix and your unit per visit data. We can map that out together on a scorecard. We can identify whether your main constraint might be a belief system or a culture, could be training, or could be maybe you have the wrong people on your team. And we can map out a 90-day plan that aligns your clinicians, your compensation, and your support staff, so each visit actually pays what it should. If that sounds helpful, click the link in the description, book your free staffing freedom call. Lastly, like always, don't make the mistake that everyone's going to make, and they're going to watch this and they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to get to that someday. Just confront it. Take a weekend, watch this video, dive into the metrics, and implement at least one actionable thing in your practice, and you will start to move things forward. It's not going to be perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about nudging these improvements over time that keep everybody happy. All right? I love you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.